Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Our moderator, Mr. Mike Osanebi, thank you so much for your insightful introduction and bringing us into this, conversation today. So,
thank you, sir.
As a side note for today, there are a few things I'd like to quickly share as a foundational thought, and then we will build on that. So to start with, applied ethnomusicology, as we all know, is globally renowned, popular, and very effective, just like the other subfields of ethnomusicology and anthropology, from where the field itself, emerged from, and where it is, primarily located and situated as a practice, as a field, as also a tool. But what is also important here is that the field itself, as we've noticed, is not popular in Nigeria. But fortunately, recently, the Department of Music at Mountaintop University introduced a course, and we felt, and after that, we've gotten, there's a request from, okay, whilst you are doing this, what does this entail? How does this, add to what we are doing? How does it? So we have more of requests from colleagues who are quite, fascinated about the discipline itself and what it can offer the Nigerian public, as well as the practice of musicological study in Nigeria. Not only in Nigeria, of course, across Africa, but the field itself is prominent in other African society. It's quite popular. It's in Ghana, and it has a long-standing, history in Ghana, in Kenya, across Tanzania. We can talk about South Africa, of course, Zimbabwe. So we felt there's a need for this kind of focus in Nigeria, and the Mountaintop University, through its graduate program in music, has introduced a program, and it seems it's going so well, in the sense that from what you are going to see today. So today's presentation is a co-presentation, like if I might say it, is actually this is the first part, which is more like introduction. We are introducing the concept of as requested by some of our scholars in Nigeria and friends, within Lagos and beyond. Okay, can we have a popular discourse on this, and to see the value of this particular field? So today's presentation is just an introductory note to say to what the idea of, applied ethnomusicology. We are still going to have another presentation that, that these more, goes into depth into the practice. But today's idea is simply to open it up, a few detailed background and, spot on, ideas of what it means for Nigerian context and how we can start engaging the idea. Of course, like any other fields phenomenon, it's not a finite idea, approach, or perspective we are presenting. The idea is simply to introduce, I'm sure you know what I mean by to introduce the practice. And so the idea is to open to open for conversation, engagement, and as our, moderator has explained, the idea is to open this talk. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we are going to take it from there. Sharing, then we go from there to the next one. Okay. Bam, bam, bam. Okay. No, 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 not this. Thank you. This is what we are looking for, not those ones. Yeah. So why are we not having a wireframe? So what's happening? Okay. Can you see my slide, please? Or screen, let's see.
Yes.
Okay, good. So as explained earlier, the idea is to, like the topic says, music, society, and applied ethnomusicology in Nigeria and beyond, introducing practice and approaches in of applied research in music. So my name is Oladele Ayorinde. I'm a visiting scholar at Mountaintop University, and I'm the curator, the convener of the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series. Thanks for joining us today. So today I'm wearing another cap as a co-presenter to launch out this particular idea to us. So the question that some of the ideas we want to launch is simply, is through this particular question and the sublayer to which I will get to shortly. So the first one is, what is applied ethnomusicology? Of course, the term itself has been under scrutiny over the years through practices, through theoretical expansion, through argument, and through diverse forms of engagement across places and spaces. And people have, over the years also, make serious argument. And through these forms, this argument and discourse, we have seen the field itself expanded, the expansion of the field in tremendous way in the last few decades. Okay, so the question now, as it is quite straightforward on the one hand. It's also not straightforward because there's a lot ongoing in this particular question. But rather than saying it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now we are going to open the conversation by just saying, okay, by drawing on what is already available in terms of communication, in terms of research, of course. So applied now, the field itself is, like I said, it's established and there are layers of publication, but this is one of the standards, one of the standards of the subfield, which is published in 2015. So what we have in this particular handbook, I'm going to draw a lot from this particular handbook, and also most of the perspective here is more like, this is more like the peak of the conversation from the early 90s, 1990s down to 2015, when this particular work was published and launched, and is quite relevant, very insightful material, very detailed perspective on the field itself here. So, but I found this particular explanation, interesting as a tool to kick off this particular this presentation. So I'm going to quote Jeff Todd, who is one of the co-editor of the handbook on the we can say anthology of applied ethnomusicology. Jeff Todd also is one of the pioneering scholar of applied ethnomusicology. He has been at the forefront of expanding the field, its scope, and the argument, of applied ethnomusicology, both as a practice, a theoretical space, and also a tool of mediation in contemporary world. So according to him, applied ethnomusicology is best understood, is best explained in terms of, its as a music-centered intervention in a particular community. That is, its purpose is to benefit that community. For example, a social improvement, a musical benefit, a cultural good, and economic advantage, or combination of these and other benefits. According to him, it is music-centered, but above all, the intervention is people-centered. I really want us to note that this particular action is based on collaborative partnerships that arise from ethnomusicological field work. I'll come back to that. So central to this idea is that we can explain applied ethnomusicology as using ethnomusicological knowledge and skills to solve real-world problems. The question is, what are or is this real-world problem? Okay, I will get back to this shortly, but let's go back to the first point. So the question is central to this particular explanation by Jeff Todd, which I really find fascinating and very quite open-ended in all ramification, is that the applied ethnomusicology itself does not stand on its own. It is rooted on a long-standing practice of ethnomusicology as a field. Then how do we unpack that? Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so then to explain its rootedness in ethnomusicology, let's just look at the aims and functions of applied ethnomusicology. And in doing that, let's take a kind of a bit of the history downward, towards memory lane to come back to where we are today, going back to the early, foundation of this discipline in late 19th century and early 20th century. I mean, the discipline of ethnomusicology as a field or its development. So I think I want to start my mapping from the 1920s. So applied ethnomusicology didn't just emerge from the blues. It's actually a development from a long-standing practice, institutionalized practice and forms of scholarly engagement and community engagement practice in scholarship over the years. So let's start from anthropology in the 1920s. So it is rooted, for instance, in anthropology. Of course, the field of ethnomusicology itself is rooted in both anthropology and folklore studies. So, and musicology, of course. So, but I'll get to that shortly. But let's start from the 1920s. In the 1920s, particularly following the First World War and also as a response later to the Second World War, scholarly training, in anthropologists were trained, some scholars who eventually became anthropology in today's term, they were trained and posted across colonial spaces and also at war front to carry out specific activities. They are scholars, but they were trained for that particular purpose. So, and not just to do something in war front, not to engage in war, but also provide, forms of administration, administrative help, managing society, and also getting into the depth of what the colonial administration or war or those at the war front, what they needed to do at the time. So anthropologists were trained at the time and were sent out. One of the pioneers of this type of scholarship, somebody at the center of it was Radcliffe Brown, who we can say is the father of African anthropology. So Radcliffe Brown started the first department of anthropology in Africa at the University of Cape Town in 1921. And through his effort and establishing the department, Radcliffe Brown trained many, personnel who actually helped in mitigating different forms. And later, also for colonial administration. So this is the beginning. Then by the 1950s, the field of musicology, the field of folklore, the field of anthropology has evolved through various scholars who were initially in anthropology, folklore, and other field, and musicology also has evolved into what we call musicology by 1950s. And that, central to that work, according to Alan Merriam, who was also one of the pioneers and forerunners of ethnomusicology work at the time, explained that the attempt for ethnomusicology is attempting to provide solutions to applied practical problems, to create and provide solutions, or provide solutions or create applied, to resolve our practical issues, So that was his argument at the time. And even recently, when applied ethnomusicology became famous and popular, people have always, gone back to reference, this particular statement that every work is applied, every knowledge is applied. We are all activists. So there's no need for applied. Everybody's doing applied work. Everybody, of course. So I will get to that shortly. So, but in the 1950s, ethnomusicology and folklore became a central point, also in mediating, diverting the attention of scholarly research, from the colonial practice into now looking into other forms of preservation, forms of analysis, and so it became a field of study. From the 1960s to 1970s, ethnomusicology itself was standardized, and one of the earliest concerns of ethnomusicology was music preservation and recordings of ethnic music and documentation of world music cultures. If you notice, for some of the scholars in African musicology, ethnomusicology, or humanities and social sciences, the 1960s down to late 1970s, most of the scholars were busy with documentation. It was about documentation. So most of them were even working with radio stations. So this was as a result of this particular concern at the time. The function at the time was to preserve music, was about preservation, was about documentation, and getting those cultures so they won't die in quote. Then by the late 1970s, early 1980s, the field of applied, and from the early 1980s to 1990s, the field of applied ethnomusicology evolved through two important dynamic and development at the time, which include the postmodernist movement, postmodernism. Then the second is what they call in social sciences, anthropology, ethnomusicology, folklore, the reflexive tone. Yeah, and also the idea of globalization, world economic and political crisis, and identity crisis across everywhere. So let me quickly explain just two of these to provide a context for that particular era. Before 1980s, the formula, the approach has been, top-down power relation. When scholars travel to in the name of preserving, like the 1960s and 70s, of preserving other culture, what they do is they assert that colonial power. It was being propagated. But in the late 1970s, another movement, paradigm shift, assert that, okay, it became a kind of reflexive tone, trying to reflect, okay, power relation issue. And that provided another room for another forms of scholarly thinking. And that was another beginning. Scholars start talking about me. I went to the field. This is my position. This is how I relate to A and B and C. And the other one, of course, SAP, structural adjustment program across the world. Economic, crisis also led to political crisis here and there. So 1990s became the foundational years for applied ethnomusicology as a sub-discipline. And central to that was the idea to respond to global crises and global challenges. But quickly, let's go back to the 60 for a minute, and we'll come back to from 1990s, and we can now unpack different functions and what applied ethnomusicologists do and what the significance are. So, for instance, in the 1960s, Alan Lomas, who is quite popular for some of his works, some of his ideas, in the 1960s and beyond, for instance, Alan Lomas, was an American ethnomusicologist, folklorist, activist, writer, scholar, political activist, oral historian, and filmmaker who is quite popular and renowned for his theories, including cantometry and different forms of engagement in this preservation agenda at the time. And he worked not within just he worked across culture, both African American, other Native American culture, recording recording and documenting, these works at the time. And like we all know, it has a huge archive, some, in the US and across the world that people are engaging today. But central to this particular work, this is, I can say, one of the pioneer practical, visible approaches or functions, early ideas of applied ethnomusicology. So the works of Alan Lomas, for instance, is quite intriguing in terms of ways in which he exemplified the idea of applied work in ethnomusicology. This is just one of many, of course. Yeah. So let's move forward. Then from the 1990s onward, societies across the world currently facing new sets of what can be called global challenges. These challenges include climate change, intra-ethnic and regional wars, political, economic, social crises, and racial crises necessitated by the aftermath of slave trade, colonialism, and apartheid. Applied ethnomusicologists design research projects explicitly to make an impact and address these very real problems in people's lives. So then the question is, what are the branches or sub-focus of applied ethnomusicology? So like applied ethnomusicology is quite diverse in terms of scopes and branches. Some of its branches include, for instance, public musicology, archive and museum practice, artistic and creative research work, radio and TV, ecomusicology, for instance, cultural and creative industries, ethnomusicology of health and well-being, organological work, education, cultural policy, and management. Let me just explain two of these again. Public musicology, for instance, is centered to a practice that is situated between what is called academic research and public research, or let's say academic research or professional research or applied research. This is going back a bit now. So we have what we call the academic applied ethnomusicology. They do their work within the university system. They do the work, they go to the community, they work with the community. But despite that, their business, their major aim is simply to also work with those people and also write and publish. That is one. Then the other one is a professional practice, which is not academic in all its ramifications. So this includes musicologists or ethnomusicologists who are working, for instance, in government parastatals, who are, who work in the film industry, cultural industry, or who have established themselves, including publishing press, but not with the sole aim of publishing their results. Their aim is to render service, particularly to government, to the community, even NGO. They work with NGOs. So for instance, in Nigeria, most of us or many scholars, work in the university, they also work in the community. But there is also an avenue, even in the Nigerian context, to which we'll get shortly, for people who have PhDs, who are scholars to work with government. Yeah, we have samples of these frameworks for this already, even in the past and also now. I'll get to that. So public musicology, for instance, in current terms, could mean or entails public engagement in different form. But one of the practice in this area that I would like to point out is writing, from the writing perspective. In the academic applied work, scholars are still made, they still need to use the academic language to write for the established, in the name of reporting, they report the research, of course, you report. But in terms of public work, scholars, having their own platform, working with newspaper, working with other forms of media houses, and even the recent one is of social media, writing blogs, but the idea is to communicate the same research, what they have done to engage community, or to explain practice that what they have done, from one place to the other, working with musicians and community, or mediating crisis here and there, publishing this stuff via social media, short clips of video on Twitter and Facebook, publishing their work. But there's a unifying point again, going back to the root. These works are research center. This research has been done, and they bring to the fore, to the public, this same material, yeah. Then the other one is archive and museum. In our archive, okay, let me leave that. That one is quite popular. The other one is we can call artistic and creative research work. This is also a branch. For instance, in the Nigerian or West African context, we know about the phenomenon called African art music. Yeah. So let me start from the works of Ephraim Amu, Kwaben and Ketia, Akin Uba. All these, the list is quite, long in terms of good and creative ways in which they've engaged their research. So what this generation of this particular component of African music scholars have done is to simply go to the community, do their ethnomusicological work or do their musicological work, engage the community, and use materials derived from this research to compose new songs. That's one. Another layer to this artistic research or creative research is also the process of transcribing music, either a lost material somewhere, grabbing it, transcription. Transcription is also artistic research. Transcription and making it available for those who will use it for something else or using it for composition. This is also artistic research work. Artistic research also entails, performance, engagement. There's something called phenomenology in performance scholars studies. So this is a component of artistic research where a performer, a concert pianist, will reflect on ways in which he or she interpreted particular work. So these are all under applied ethnomusicological rubrics. Yeah. So let's move. Then we have, of course, ecomusicology, ideas of climate, talking about climate issues, issues of climate, issues of environmental issues. Again, these are all rooted in ethnography, being there, which I will get to shortly. So they are all rooted in working with the community. This is different to sitting somewhere and just writing and talking about people who you have not been there. You haven't carried it. They didn't even know you there, So the idea of applied is being there and reporting. Then while being there in one and mediating, helping them to solve a real world problem. And in the process of solving this problem is where the scholarship comes out from, reporting it either to the academic community or what we call public musicology, writing for New York Times, writing for Vanguard in Nigeria, writing for embassy, writing for different people. So this is where the public musicology comes in, working with embassy, working with, art and NGOs, even NGOs working across, society in crisis. They employ musicologists to work with them. They use music, they engage, because music seems to be one of the creative tool, also scientific tool to engage long-standing cultural practice, Then method. Applied ethnomusicology is rooted in ethnography. What is ethnography? Ethnography, according to Clifford Guest, for instance, is being there, being there. According to Clifford Guest, Stephen Feld, those scholars who who have long-standing experience is simply being there. What is being there? Doing participant observation. That is doing the work, you know. So ethnography is the ability to engage practically with a community, a music practice, and writing the process, reporting the process from that engagement and analyzing it, you know, or using a particular culture, music culture, like Clifford Geertz explained in Cultural Interpretation in his 1973 publication, about using a particular lens, a specific cultural practice to explain, to understand a broader social issue in that community. This is, I think, is central to the work of ethnomusicology, and particularly applied ethnomusicology, because applied ethnomusicology is not just about the music itself. Rather, it is having entry to the community, to that world, through that simple musical practice or cultural practice, you know, engaging them, and also now having a real time with them, solving that problem through forms of collaboration, collaborative effort. That is central, which is ethnography is central to the work of applied ethnomusicology. So the subfield, you know, is diverse, you know. Applied ethnomusicology is quite diverse in terms of approaches and methods. So this method, they include, I'll just outline a few of them. So as I explained earlier, artistic research, forms of analysis, musical analysis, and making it happen. The process of doing that analysis, composing that work, they are artistic. That's a method. That's a method. Archival and professional practice, of course, working in the archive, curating events. They are all they are methods in applied ethnomusicology. Music composition, of course, analysis and performance. These are also part of artistic research, of course. Then festival organization and management, you know, I used to run a program, which we are still running, of course, in South Africa. We call it the Vis Festival Study Group. This was a response to the post-1994 apartheid issue, particularly in the years before COVID-19. The society was engrossed in a huge problem of, you know, youth arising, you know, youth, you know, emergence, calling for, asking questions. And one of the ways we engage this youth at the time is simply to start to, to launch a festival study group where we plan festivals, particularly to negotiate what we call social justice across marginalized community. So festival organization and management, and also performing art events. These are all forms of method in applied ethnomusicology. Then what we call again participatory action research. This is quite important. It's also a tool that is applicable to all these lists. But let me stop a bit. Participatory action research seems to be very, very practical and very, very significant to this particular field, because in everything we do in applied ethnomusicology, it is about participatory action research. You must be there. You must be there. You are participating. So it's about empathy. So the underlying tone is empathy, ability to see from their lens, which is also rooted in the earlier definition of ethnography by Malinowski, which is right from the native perspective. But that word is quite it's an antiquated term right now. But right now, it's simply to see to empathize, to see from their own lens. For instance, in Nigeria, look at people in the Niger Delta, issues of hard men and farming, all those things, and farmers. So the idea, there's a spot for applied work there. There's a spot. Issues of, music issues, hospital, healthcare. Yeah. So its ability to see, to use music, through music, to see from their own perspective and help pronounce this perspective, and in so doing, negotiate, possible solutions to their problem. Then from this particular action, the empathy brings about activist encounter. Because when you are engrossed in a particular culture, it tends, which is which is the foundation of ethnography. You embody their own person, their culture, and it becomes yours. So activism emerged from participatory action because you are immersed in that culture. It has become your culture, and you are now standing for that cause. I have two examples, for instance. In Finland, there's a particular culture called the Samic culture. The Samic people I think they are located in Finland, somewhere in eastern Finland, and they are quite marginalized. But despite that, the Samic culture, the Samic, particularly what they call the yoik, is a forms of indigenous music. But this yoik particular genre is located within the heart. So their forms of worship is quite rooted in on the heart. So any forms of digging, any forms of pipe planting for them is like inflicting, it's like bad omen. And there are scholars who have engaged, this particular culture, culture, and also making case for them with the government. I think they won a few cases for this community. So this is the kind of work that activism brings about. Also, recently, there's a ongoing war. I'm sure we know about the Gaza, Palestine, and Israel's war. One of my colleagues, who I really, really respect so much, David McDonald, as well, his ethnography, his doctoral work is he did his doctoral work in Gaza, Palestine, among the Palestinians. It's also during the war, I think in the 2000. And since then, he has published two books working with Palestinian, musicians, refugees, and also traveling there in and out to work with them. So recently, when the call for ceasefire was refused, many universities in the US, for instance, many students, across university, start protesting. This, my friend, this my colleague, professional colleague, who, because of his love, passion for this work, not just as a scholarly endeavor, academic knowledge, he actually went out, by himself, also joining the protest to canvass, to also, to call for ceasefire. He was caught by police, and that actually brought a huge, another layer of discourse. This is popular within ethnomusicological realm, SEM, in the US and across the world right now. So this is a practical example of activist action or encounters in applied ethnomusicology. So for MacDonald, it is not enough for him to write about those people, their suffering, their problem. So going beyond the scholarly terrain of just talking about them at conferences, of publishing, he also went out for their cause. And in the process, he was caught, and he went through series of, he was even in trouble, with government. But that's not the most important thing. Is that he went out for that cause, fighting for the action of the Gaza people and the Palestinian people. That is, I think, for me, that exemplifies the activist encounters, the work of applied ethnomusicologists, particularly in situations or communities where there's crisis and problem. Then the next one is policy work, of course. Applied ethnomusicology engage policy. They analyze policy materials in archive with government. They consult here and there for here. Then, okay, so the question then we need to ask ourselves then is, what is the relevance of this work, in Nigerian context? So what I've done is just to provide a kind of overview, a very smart overview for that matter, because the field itself is quite, it's huge, and it has a long run, so there's a lot. So this is part one. But for now, I want to call on my friends and colleagues from this particular course to come and to add their voice and extend this conversation. So the question for them, what they're exploring is, what is the context and what is the relevance of applied ethnomusicology? What are the branches? What is it in Nigerian context? How can we take advantage of the field in Nigeria? Thank you. Thank you. So can we have Prince?
Okay. We're calling on Prince Ademuyiwa to further the discussion.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you for the bringing all the details that is projecting us. So the question is, what is the relevance of this applied ethnomusicology to us in Nigeria? How really can we make use of this? We're going to look at
Can't hear you. We can't hear you again, sir.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, there seems to be some form of reverberation in there. I don't know. Maybe you get to sort out a few things.
Okay.
You
It's
can go
still
ahead,
clear
sir.
now. Okay, thank you. I will be talking about one area of this applied ethnomusicology that is going to project us.
I don't know. I seem to be having difficulty.
But I can hear him. It's clear. It's clear. I can hear him.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to talk about advocacy. Actually, Dr. Ayo had mentioned that is what we actually do as applied ethnomusicology. And the first question we will ask is, what is advocacy as concerned applied ethnomusicology? Yeah, advocacy in applied musicology involves using the principles and practices of ethnomusicology to promote, protect, and support musical traditions and the communities that sustain them. Yeah, it goes beyond academic study to actively engage in initiatives that address social, cultural, and political issues through music. And there are different areas. Somebody can ask, what can we do? How do we advocate, and which area of advocacy can we do? We understand that the advocacy goes in more than what we will discuss in this space, because scholars like Tommy has done a lot of work in advocacy. But we just want to bring it out. So how do we understand in which area can we practice this? The first area I'm going to mention will be cultural preservation and heritage. Yeah, documentation and archiving, cultural policies, funding for preservation projects. So all these are what ethnomusicologists can do to advocate for those working structures in this cultural preservation. We will be able to advocate for the proper documentation and digital archiving of traditional music, oral histories, and performance to preserve the Nigerian musical heritage. Then we can also work with policymakers to develop and implement policies that protect and promote Nigerian musical tradition and cultural expression. What about funding? Yeah, we can lobby for increased funding and resources for projects aimed at preserving traditional music in different forms. Yeah, the second stage will be intellectual property rights. There are many musicians, both local and that fight over to protect their intellectual properties. But what can we do? Can advocate for stronger intellectual property rights to protect the music of the indigenous and local communities from exploitation. We can advocate to ensure that musicians and cultural practitioners receive fair compensation for their work and contributions to the cultural heritage. Education and cultural development. This is key because we can advocate for proper curriculum in the schools, inclusion of traditional Nigerian music in school curricula, and even advocate for teachers who can train this. In recent time, we have heard about decolonization here or there. Then we wonder, what are the curriculum in the schools that we are using? Is it not these colonization programs that we are still in? So if we want to get out of this, we need to advocate to make sure that there is inclusion of this cultural music in the curriculum of the schools. Another thing we want to look at is the community empowerment and social justice. So how do we press to engage the youth in the development of those programs? What about women's rights, inclusion and recognition of women in music, promoting gender equality and empowering female musicians, conflict resolution and peace building? All these put together, the applied ethnomusicologists can work on this, that we promote community empowerment and social justice. Another area we look at is economic development and sustainable practice, cultural tourism, market access for musicians, sustainable practices. So we can advocate this, make it a well workable thing that can then make even economic impact on the tourism. When you work on the music of a particular place, it can work to bring out tourist attraction through music, and that is economic enhancement. We talk about intercultural dialogue. You know, you have an intercultural festival, cultural exchange program between one ethnicity and the other. In Nigeria, we can move and work. So that's the job of ethnomusicologists, applied ethnomusicologists, to make it work. We talked about environmental and climate change. Well, sometimes we have read about the Niger Delta where their means of livelihood were perished because of the oil spillage. They could not catch the fish as they used to be. So what ethnomusicologists can work on this to bring out their problem into the government base and how they can be helped. We talk about earth-based well-being. So we have music therapy. public health campaign. We have had program issues like the HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other health concerns. Through music, we can bring it out to advocate and promote the public health. Advocate for the use of music therapy in healthcare. We remember even in the Bible days where David played music for the healing of King Saul. It still happens today on music therapy. Yeah, media and public awareness, media campaign, documentaries and film. We can use music for this. And the last aspect I'm going to talk about is the legal and policy framework, cultural rights advocacy. Then we can advocate and plead for international support from the international organization that for advocacy efforts that protect Nigerian musical heritage. All these are jobs we can do as applied ethnomusicology to work in this area, promote this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Prince Adejugbe, for this wonderful insight into the field of applied ethnomusicology. Back to Dr. Ayorinde. Do we still have more on this particular topic?
Yes, we have one of our friends and colleagues.
Okay.
Tope, can we have Temitope Obalade, please?
Okay. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Temitope Obalade, and I will be expatiating on the topic on ground, which is applied ethnomusicology, its fields and its methods. Please permit me to share. Okay, I can't share yet.
Okay, you can share. And I think you made co-host.
Yes, you can share. You can share your slide.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Can you see my? I think I'm sharing my screen.
Yes, it's visible enough. We can see it.
All right. Thank you. So I have just a few things to discuss about ethnomusicology, just to apply the ethnomusicology. Sorry, just to add to what my colleagues have been discussing. So applied ethnomusicology is a practical application of all that ethnomusicology stands for and represents. So we all have been very familiar with the word and the phenomenon ethnomusicology. Many of us have, written or published journals, articles, or even books that has to do with ethnomusicology. Its pillars and things around that particular phenomenon. But the only thing that is strange is the word applied that is before it. So now, if you know anything about ethnomusicology, all you need to do is to apply it, and then you have applied ethnomusicology. So it is a practical application, applying all that you know in ethnomusicology. Today we will discuss three of them, but one of them is central to my own presentation, and that is promotion and preservation of music cultures. So one of the central beliefs or pillars of ethnomusicology is promoting and preserving music cultures, dance cultures across the world. Now, When we promote music cultures and dance cultures, we are doing ethnomusicology. But when we put that into practice, that exactly is the duty of the ethnomusicologist. Sorry. That is the duty of the ethnomusicologist. Please, can you still see my screen?
Yes, yes, we can see it.
We preserve traditional music. We preserve dance and other cultural expressions by promoting them in a world of globalization and postmodernist theories. So recently in the world today, even people in the villages and, in some local parts of the world are all tending towards what we call postmodernism. Everybody wants to know what's going on in the United States of America. Everybody wants to know what's going on in Europe. Everybody is connected via the internet. And all of that gives a downside of neglecting our local cultures and traditions. And that is one of the things that ethnomusicology is concerned about. We want to make sure that these cultures, these traditions do not go into extinction. Some of them are already threatened. In fact, some of them are already considered as endangered because they somehow, somewhere, it is difficult to find them, even in those local communities. For instance, while I was studying for my master's, I had an assignment to get the music culture of, is a locality in Lagos, and look into their music and dance and everything about them. It took me months to be able to get a troupe, a dance group that still indulge in these kind of things. I kept calling somebody who said, oh, those people, they don't do it anymore. Some of them have traveled, and calling another person, and they kept, referring me to one other person, to another person, until I was able to get this particular person who, by the time I got there, the place doesn't even look traditional anyways, but thankfully I was able to gather a few people who did all the performances. So I was concerned that this is Badagry. I went to Badagry. This is Badagry. I should be able to get all of the music traditions of Badagry and their performances. I should be able to get it in this place. But then, even if the man kept complaining that, oh, you could not find so and so person, they couldn't get all the costumes that are needed for the performance and all of that. So this music are already threatened, and the job of the ethnomusicologist is to promote them and preserve them. But how do we do it if we only write in books? If all we do in ethnomusicology is just to go to school and teach people to preserve their music, and then write papers on preservation and documentation and archiving, and we do nothing about it. So this is where applied ethnomusicology come in. We have to actually practice and apply what we teach, what we say we know. And how do we do that? Go into the community, which is what Dr. Ayorinde spoke about, ethnology. Going into the field, being there, that is a method. You have to go there, you have to now look for. So if, for example, about the Badagry instance I gave the other time, if I had to go back there, stay there for another 1 year, thankfully I have a lot of people around Badagry because I once lived there. So if I have to go there and stay around there, then I keep monitoring this particular group. From there, I would discover people who are more into it, maybe in the very, local places, places that are even more local than the places I visited. And, places that are still very, very inside, bush. If I go into all those places, I would be able to discover more people. And before you know it, we'll be able to recover all their music and then document it, archive it, and even teach it to people that are seemingly outside. The ones that are really in the city, in Badagry town, the main Badagry town. Teach them They speak Egun language, but they do not even know their performances, their songs. So come out and teach it to them, and then take it on like that. We're able to do that promotion. But if only we just go there like I did and do a 3 hours or 4 hours or 1 day visitation and just write, see their performances, write it and everything, go back to our base and then write up a book or a thesis or a journal, an article, and say, oh, this is what they do in this place, that is not going to preserve the music. That is just going to make a few people who will read those articles to know that, oh, our music are not being preserved, and that's all. There's no solution to it. So ethnomusicology without the applied in front of it is more like knowing the problem, going to find problems, but leaving it at that. No solutions. So that takes me to our third slide. How do we actually apply these things? What do we do? Applied ethnomusicologists organize festivals that showcases traditional music and dance with all its costume. So I remember that while I was living in Badagry, some maybe 20 something years ago, or 20 years ago, I was opportune to come across a particular festival. I was just going and then I saw that people were gathered somewhere. I asked them, what are you doing? They said, they are going for a particular festival at the marina. That's at the beach side, but Agri has a lot of beaches and all that. So, and then I followed them as a young person. I was just inquisitive. I was just curious to know what was going on. And then I got there, I saw all these, their masquerades and all of those things, performances with the local drums, local singers, and all of those kind of things. So I remember that, okay, so if these things can happen, why is it difficult for me to get them when I was looking for them? So that means there are people, ethnomusicologists can actually bring up these things. They can bring up these festivals. All you need to do is go to the king, go to all the local authorities. We need people who perform. We need people who can do this. We need people who can do that. And then it's just a matter of course, raising funds. You raise funds, you can even ask for grants. And then after all of that, do this kind of festivals, maybe annually, biannually, or even quarterly, monthly, as the case may be, to promote the music, to preserve it. Sometimes these projects are sponsored by governments or cultural organizations for which the ethnomusicologists are employees or contractors. So government can actually contract an ethnomusicologist, say, please, I want you to do this and this for me. We want to sustain this kind of music. We want to preserve it so that it does not go into extinction. At other times, it is the ethnomusicologist himself that will take up the project as a part of their research work or as a way of giving back. Now, giving back is a core value of an applied ethnomusicologist. Most of the reasons why people decide to do more than they actually need, because at this point, the ethnomusicologist does not need this. What he needs is to get information. He has gone to the place, he has gotten information like I did, and then he has written his stamp paper or book or whatever, but he feels that there's something more. We need to preserve this for the next generation of ethnomusicologists, for the next generation of locals, or even the international community. They need to know that something like this once existed. So for that reason, he goes back there to give back to that community, because his work, his time, his resources, his knowledge, everything is being applied to sustaining and preserving that music. So if he is not being paid by any organization, sometimes he has to, write for grants or even call the attention of big organizations, companies, and government to look into this. So it's a lot of work for him. He will have to dedicate his time even to get the funds. And when he gets the funds, he ends up spending it on this particular project. So giving back is a core value of an applied ethnomusicologist. If you want to be an applied ethnomusicologist, you are not trying to be selfish, getting all the money and then just going away. No, the people want someone to help them. The community needs help, and you are there to help them. As someone who has also benefited from them, you have gone there, you interview them, they gave you information, they are ready to, you know, divulge a lot of things, some of them even secret to you, just because they feel that you are more knowledgeable and you can help them. Now, it will be a sort of betrayal if you decide not to help and you just get all the information and disappear. So that is a very big way to show yourself as learned, as an applied ethnomusicologist who stays or abides by his word. Then sustainability is also another branch or layer of promotion and preservation, because in some communities, their music are not endangered. So the fact that you have not gone to a community, a local community, let's say your work is in Lagos, is on Lagos Island, your project, the information you need is on Lagos Island, or you live in Lagos Island, or you hail from an European country or city that is very, very, you know, developed. That does not mean that you are not going to have a job or you are not going to do anything. You also have a duty of sustaining the music. So because the music is not threatened or endangered does not mean you will not do anything or you become jobless. You have to pull resources together to sustain the growth and power of the music cultures of that society, no matter how developed it is. That is the goal of an applied ethnomusicologist in developed places, developed cities, or developed countries. Then, if you feel that, oh, you have done so much in this environment, you could now decide to go to a less developed place and go there to, you know, do more things. And finally, I'll be talking about where you will work as an. So people say, okay, an ethnomusicologist. Many people believe that, okay, ethnomusicology is mostly about teaching in the university and then writing papers. That is what applied ethnomusicology is here to change. That is a truth, but it is not the complete truth, because an ethnomusicologist can actually be employed in several other places. You can be contacted to also handle several other projects, relevant projects, in any of these places that have been listed here, in museums, in art councils, in embassies across the world, in NGOs. So some NGOs can decide that, oh, this is what they want to do. Maybe they want to advocate, because there are other aspects or branches of ethnomusicology that have been listed before, apart from this preservation and promotion of music that I have spoken about. There are some other branches like advocacy, like education, and all of those things. Now, so if you decide that this is what you want to do, you can go, you can work with NGOs, you can work with government-sponsored organizations and other world organizations such as UNICEF, UNESCO, and all of them. We can work as festival presenters, like those people that so what they do is to make sure that this music does not go dead. So these traditional music troops, those groups, those bands, they always wait. That's their own biggest platform to perform. So they always wait. That is one of the reasons why they have not totally disbanded. So sometimes they do little, you know, gigs across the towns and villages, or maybe some of their indigenes who have traveled elsewhere, maybe in Lagos or in other big cities in the country, they go there to perform. But the major one they always wait for is this festival every year. They know that, oh, Black Heritage Festival is coming. 5 months before, they start preparing all their performances, and that helps to sustain that music, because those groups are not disbanded. They keep working, and then people learn from them. They even recruit new people. So if maybe, for instance, one of their members or two members, you know, decide to leave the environment, go for, you know, a better place, according to them, greener pastures, or maybe he even dies or something. They recruit younger people, and then it helps people that will now come for the festival to go ahead. Many white people, tourists, come into the country as a result of that, which also give us, some economical boosts at that period. Because I have lived in Badagry for up to about 10 years, and I saw these things firsthand. They come, like tourists. They just want to see, oh, this is the first church in Nigeria. This is that tree under which the first preacher, preached. We have a missionaries cemetery in Badagry where those missionaries were buried. A lot of things like that. They want to come and see all those things, and then they come and see that festival. They see the performances. Many of them come with their, some, I'm sure that some of them are even ethnomusicologists, come around to just see what's going on, like observe the performances. And you can work as a radio and television producer. You can work as writers. So many people write, like Dr. Ayorinde shared earlier. You can work as a writer for even magazines, for news outlets. You can work as educators, facilitators, mediators, and all the other things, as long as it is for sociocultural, economic, and of musical benefits. Any of those things will work for you as an applied ethnomusicologist. So thank you very much for listening.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. This is great. Thank you very much, Dr. Ayorinde and your team. You guys have really done a lot of justice to this great topic, music, society, and applied ethnomusicology. I don't know if they can see me. Okay.
Yes, we can. We can see you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I am full of praises for this great team that have delivered this great, beautiful lectures on applied ethnomusicology, its values and relevance, even in today's world and towards Africans. We've heard from them the beauty of this this new area that they are introducing to us here in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Dr. Ayorinde and your team. God will bless you all for this wonderful insight. And to our colleagues and friends out there, I'm sure you've heard them. And I believe you must have, maybe you have one or two questions to ask them, or possibly contribute to the program. Please, the floor is yours. It's now time for questions and answer. Possibly you want to make contributions too. Thank you very much. We're expecting the first person to speak. Please, you can identify raising your hands. Okay. We have Babarisa in the house. Thank you for coming. We don't know if you have any question for us.
No question, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Samuel Amusan in the house. Is there anything for us? Okay. Okay. Is there anybody who wants to say something?
I think there's a question in the chat by Michael Bakari.
Okay, from Michael Bakari. He said, well done job to the team. He's directing this to Dr. Ayorinde. How is this different from creative ethnomusicology? So Dr. Ayorinde, there's a question for you, that how is applied ethnomusicology different from creative ethnomusicology?
Okay.
Mr. Dusharo, we are coming back to you. Let's answer Michael Bakari first.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Very clearly, sir.
Creative musicology, creative ethnomusicology. It's, well, for me, it's simply, okay, let's go back to the idea of practice and applied. So applied ethnomusicology is first and foremost about application of ethnomusicological theory, practice, methods, and knowledge. Like my friends and colleagues have just explained, particularly Tope explained. So there are two layers of even applied work, not to even go to ethnomusicology or musicological work. The first layer include those that works within the university, the broader academic. Some are, the first is the academic practice. They work mainly from the university. Yes, like Tokwe insightfully explained, they go there for knowledge, okay, knowledge, they do the work and they write the process, they leave, that's it. So that's one. That's one, the academic, and some of them stay, they work with the people, they promote, like my friend, I said, my Dr. McDonald, from Professor McDonald from my department, Indiana University, who has been working with people in, Gaza for years. And recently he has been, arrested by the Indianapolis police corps because he's leading a protest in favor of Palestine and Gaza. It's an applied ethnomusicology, you see. So that is one, but it's in the university. And the other ones are those who work in government practice, professional practice, journalism. They work in, they work in different archives, TV station, radio station, so they are there in society. They work in the industry, creative industry. They are working even in music therapy, in hospitals, they work over there. So the idea of creative musicology itself, as we all know, this is a term exposed or that are created and championed by our dear late Akinwuba. Yeah. Fortunately, the term was recognized towards the end of his life, and even a huge department was meant to be created for that, for the study of creative musicology. So what is creative musicology in the first, our musicology? It's simply focusing on artistic, it's a form of artistic research. In fact, it's an artistic research. It's not a form, because artistic research is also broad. You go to the community, you do the research with the gong player, with the community singers, and you write your thesis, of course, you write your article, whatever from it. But the real essence is the music you are collecting, take it back to your lab and creating something in that line. So Akinwuba they did a lot of this, and many of our scholars who I am seeing on screen right now. And like I said earlier, the idea of art music scholarship and practice is a baby of the West African musicological school of thought. So that is part of that practice. But creative musicology is sub in artistic research, which is part of applied work in ethnomusicology. I don't know if I don't want to say yes or no, but I just want to make an explanation that equally provide background, essence, and also, I don't know if it will answer, but just to explain. So the point is, creative ethnomusicology is an approach under artistic research, I would say, because artistic research entails analysis, performance, recreation, like Topes explained. You recreate something that is existed, the dying Sangbeto music, the rhythm. As a creative researcher, artistic researcher, I will go to that place and study the drum, write the transcribe and everything, and write something based on Sangbeto. And I can even write a play. I can write a musical. The idea is, to me, applying the knowledge of Sangbeto, recreating it in a new context. Particularly, this is even important now that we have the Gen Zs. They don't care about this festival, but they care about Afrobeats. So they care about Afrobeats. So I can work on Sangbeto or any indigenous music, create the rhythm, and just put it and just lay Afrobeat on it, and directly they are listening to Sangbeto they are listening to it unknowingly in the name, in quote, of Afrobeats. So for me, creative musicology or ethnomusicology is part of applied ethnomusicology. Even the name, apply. Akinwuba's argument is application, composition. After you have done the research, okay, let's compose. Let's also have artistic component of it. So that is artistic research. It is part of the methods of applied ethnomusicology. I don't know if that answers the question.
Can I add to that, Dr. Ayorinde?
Definitely, sir.
Okay. Oh, yeah, please, sir.
Moderator, please forgive me that I didn't raise my hand. I'm on the steering.
No problem, sir. No problem.
Well,
You're welcome.
Thank you for that explanation. What I want to add to what our colleague has said is that both applied and creative ethnomusicology or creative musicology, as it came to be before Akinwuba died, both of them will always dovetail into each other. There are strong connections. Applied ethno may survive 100% on ethnographic studies strongly. Yes. Creative ethnomusicology, we make use of that, but we always make sure it comes into practice. And what we see in creative ethnomusicology is that the Western form of theory, Western rules of theory are not followed most times when it comes to composition in creative ethnomusicology. Because what you meet in the field is what you want to come and write down. Going to Ekiti, in the southwest Nigeria, for those who are not Nigerians or who are not from this southwest of Nigeria, southwestern part, when you go to the field, you see harmonies in seconds. And you may start asking questions. By the time you are putting it down, or you are writing a composition, for instance, and you're now using such, or you see parallels, which are rules that you must avoid. For me, I say in elementary harmony, or rudiments of, and you see people doing that in the field, and you now write a piece after that theory, because that's a theory. After that theory, that is creative ethnomusicology. Only that you must always put it there that this piece is written after my field trip to so person. For applied ethnomusicology is an interesting area, because it's what you can also use to do some other research that are anthropological in nature. So that also brings out, so both for me are they dovetail to each other and brings out full and comprehensive reports of what happens in the musical arts of society. And let me stop for now for others to contribute. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Kwande, for that beautiful perspective you've added to this conversation. Dr. Ayorinde, do you want to add more to it?
Yeah, I think there's a comment here from Dr. Amushan, and I'll read loud. I would say, yeah, I would say, okay, I'm reading now. I would say that creative musicology is applied ethnomusicology, but applied ethnomusicology is not necessarily creative musicology. Of course, Dr. Amushan, you are on point. Thank you so much. I agree with you. Yes, so creative musicology, as you have explained, it is a component, in fact, it's a sub of one of the methods or approaches in applied ethnomusicology. Applied ethnomusicology is a field, like Professor Kwande just explained. There are layers to it. Of course, as somebody who is wearing the beret or wearing that label, so one can also choose. In my own applied work, I want to focus on artistic research. I want to focus on creative approaches. So creative musicology is just an approach, I would say, which is also under artistic research, under artistic method, or you can say artistic research under applied ethnomusicology. So that's what I just want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Dushoro, I saw you raising your hands. Do you still have a question for us? Mr. Dushoro, are you there? Dr. Julius.
Good afternoon, sirs.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
I am still there.
Okay, welcome, sir.
I like to say well done to you over there
Thank you.
for organizing a discussion like this. I know it has become a tradition, and personally, I want to tell you that I'm enjoying every bit of it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir. I'd like to say well done to you over there. The question I want to ask is this. Is there any difference or relationship between applied musicology and applied ethnomusicology? Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Ayorinde, do you have a response to this?
I'm going to push that to my colleagues, Temitope over there and Prince Ademuyiwa.
Is Tokwe still in the house?
Yeah, she's there. And Prince is also there, so they can answer definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, what we are talking about is what's the difference between musicology and ethnomusicology. If we first draw the slide that is qualifying them, we now say what is musicology, what is ethnomusicology. Yeah, ethnomusicology is a combination of musicology and anthropology. If we can say that one in a way that we can look at it. Why musicologists look at the component of a music and ethnomusicologists look through the music with the cultural background. So that was why teach on that the Dr. Ayo mentioned earlier talked about studying of music beyond that music. You talked about people making music. Why musicologists looks at the music and ethnomusicologists look at the people making music. So why the musicologist looking at what and how of music, an ethnomusicologist is looking beyond and how, looking at why. So I think if we can say the what differentiates musicologists and ethnomusicologists, so that we also work applied situation, because and we have musicologists who want to study the music of, maybe for example, like Yuba. He looks at the chord but the an ethnomusicology book comes to look beyond that music in the face, because music is produced by some people. So what is the reason? How is this music come up? So that is why, or the reason why ethnomusicology is different in a way from musicology. But an ethnomusicologist is also a musicologist. So you will see them entering in adding another variant to it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much. Tupen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, sir. For an applied ethnomusicologist and an applied musicology, the only difference between them is that an applied ethnomusicologist works more with the people that are performing this music, while the applied musicologists work more with the music itself. We could talk about the history of the music, we talk about the form, we could talk about the performance and all of that, the structure of the music. While the ethnomusicology is more about the culture of the people, the things that the people do that surrounds the music, not just the music as one. The music and every other thing that makes up the culture, the tradition of the people. So an applied ethnomusicology work more with the people, and that is why we say it is people-centered. Applied ethnomusicology is people-centered. Although it is music-centered, it is more of the people, or about the people. That's it.
Okay, just a quick one before I hand over back to our moderator. So the point is, let's go back again to the foundation. Just a quick one. Musicology, ethnomusicology. The difference is simply that musicology is historically based. Ethnomusicology is ethnographically based, informed. What does this mean? Musicology, both it's a discipline that is shaped by Western European music tradition, an idea of history. So it's about history. You don't need to do field work. You can engage material, newspaper, you can engage pamphlets that has pamphlets over 100 years in archive and just look at it and write a whole thesis or 3 books on it. That's musicology in its classical sense. Engaging the music, writing about it, analysis, talking, fleshing out ideas about that music. You don't need, musicologist does not necessarily entail, doing field work classically. But now that has changed over the years. Musicology, the boundary between ethnomusicology and musicology is very thin these days. In fact, it's blurred. We can say there's no boundary anymore. But classically, ethnomusicology is the study of people making music and music in its cultural context. So that means that ethnomusicology the difference is ethnography, going to that place, going there to do it. So that's just different, going to that culture, being there, doing it with them, living with them. And like Tope explained, it's beyond the music now. The music now becomes the microscope, to use the word of Clifford Geertz. It becomes the microscope through which we understand the broader society. So in that sense, the music is there. It also depends on choice. Some ethnomusicology might also want to talk about the music in the artistic analysis, fine. But many of them might want to talk about, okay, through this music, the social context and the performance context, the cultural, the history, and the politics, economy of that society. Of course, these are all layers that are possible within ethnomusicology. But in musicology, it's strictly about the music, the composer. That's why I've seen some formats over the years, the life of that person, he was born, the music, how many compositions does he have, all these things. These are classic. But right now, also in the Western world, musicology has, improved in terms of develop, and many musicologists are also doing ethnography right now. John Blacking was not a trained ethnomusicology. He was a musicologist and an anthropology. Also, Nicholas Cook, one of the most referenced and one of the most read Western British musicology, has written a book on musicology. So these are recent dynamics. If you read his book on the social life of composition or whatever, so the boundary is not clear anymore. So that's what we live now. Welcome to the postmodern era. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, sir. We are really very grateful for
Moderator.
the responses you have given to. I'm coming, Prof. We are grateful to you and your team for the response so far. Prof, permit me, there are some people whose hands have been up since. Please, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Dusharo, please, you have the floor. Is Mr. Dusharo still there?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, 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 yes. You're welcome, sir. Please go ahead and hear you.
We can hear you.
Sorry, we can't hear you anymore, sir. I don't know what happened. Can you talk now? Let's see. Hello, sir. Can you talk? Can you say something if we can? I don't know.
I guess we can move on to Dr. Nathan while we wait for.
Okay, Dr. Chinedu, please. We can't hear Mr. Dusharo for now. Please, sir, you go ahead. Why he sort out his stuff.
Are you hearing me?
Very well, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. And learned colleagues. Thanks, Dr. Ayorinde, for this wonderful, how would I call it, talk, seminar, engaging contemporary issues in Nigeria and across the world. I'm really impressed with the topic ethnomusicology and its application. Now, I want to is it a contribution or say something about the fact that in Africa, it's high time we started building our theories around our music, independent to European people in the cultural sense, in the cultural world, within our cultural settings. Now, we ask ourselves, if I'm not from Badagry, and somebody did something on Badagry, how can you teach me how to, for example, play the drums of that is played in Badagry? How can I teach somebody who is not Igbo how to blow the Oja flute? All this kind of a thing. We do theories a lot. I would, yeah, all is okay. We do some of all this, but we are not bringing this thing to bear to the fact that, okay, how can we make it something people will learn from us? Yeah, we can write a lot of pieces, but when we don't make it something people can learn and even begin to practice outside being a member of that community or ethnic group. So our active participation in cultural cultures and ethnic music and everything to also make us begin to bring out all these things, how we can make our music presentable to other parts of the world, other clients. And so this is a genuine concern, and I wish a lot of us, even at this forum, to go back, start cracking our head to see how we bring, because we need to bring this thing to the fore. Art musicians, including myself, when we bring our works side by side, still has some method of aspect of Western, influence here and there. The system of even scoring these songs, and then harmonic structure and everything somehow has a serious influence, because yes, because maybe the fact that we were before musicologists, and that has given us that gap of a serious influence on our mentality. And so whenever, even when we claim we are doing ethno, that kind of a thing still influences. So I'm putting it to this forum that we start engaging on how we're going to need to bring our systems, theories that will make our music, be performed by other clients using the theory we've propounded or proposed. Thank you very much. That's my contribution.
We can't hear you, sir. I don't know. Maybe you're muted.
I hope you heard what I said.
Yeah, I heard you clearly. I don't know if others, but I heard.
Very clear, doctor. Very clear.
Okay.
Very clear. Thank you. Yeah, we heard
Thank you very much. Yes, that's my contribution. I don't know if Dr. Ayorinde will react to that or any other person. It calls for a general, it's just a food for thought.
Okay, I was just waiting for our chair to respond and call. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We can't hear him. No, we can't hear you, sir.
Yeah, maybe he needs to unmute himself. I don't know if he has muted himself.
Okay, while we are waiting for him, let me just to buy the time while we are waiting for him. I think I understand you, sir, and I think it also relates to the, the early question about from Dr. Michael Bakari about the creative ethnomusicology or creative musicology. So one thing that we couldn't really explain or explore today is also what we call genre of research. Normally, for instance, in the US or Germany or South Africa, where I work, for instance, if I am applying for a graduate program, for instance, I'm going to focus in my proposal. I am going to write that I am interested in this music culture, but most importantly, my aim is to explore the artistic work there. In so doing, I will compose 1, 2, 3 as a way of repropagating this culture. I will perform 1, 2, 3. I will compose 1, 2, 3 in what we call motivational letter or statement of purpose. So when that student is admitted, that is what he's going to do. They are going to give him support and train him to be that thing he proposed to be. Of course, he's going to have a general background in musicology, analysis, and all those stuff. All the what we call the general stuff, and also what we also call topic courses, music and whatever, and analysis. He's going to do all that, but he's going to be trained exactly for what he has proposed for. So he's going to work with an expert who has insight in that area as one of his supervisor or mentors throughout the program. So what you are saying in essence is that it's part of ethnomusicology. There are ethnomusicologists who actually study performance. David Lucky, who is one of the very, very visible and popular voice on Ghanaian, music, indigenous drumming. He has published a lot on Ghanaian indigenous drumming, Atumpan, and all these indigenous drumming. It performs so well, and he has written a lot. If you have read articles, of course, I know you have read a lot of Kofi Agawu's work. So any Agawu will always engage David Lucky because of his theories. And those theories are coming from David Lucky's performance of those cultures. He performed for years in Ghana, learned how to play with these guys, and not just performance experience, he also theorized them, notate them. And that is through this notation that others in Europe, Asia, the US were able to understand the insights that he was talking about. which are from his own personal experience of performance practice of those cultures. We have that also. The works of Akinwuba is about this also. He went to Iragbiji and all the he went to learn this culture, learn it from A to B. And so he wrote about, I'm sure the books is quite important. The Yoruba drumming is a popular text across the world in ethnomusicology also. So he wrote about the context, the even organological insights, how to construct it, the ritual, whatever. And he also transcribed the music then before now going to creative work. So I'm sure most of his composition have drawn theories from that research. The same, our own Dr. Ayo Oluranti. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's not yet. I don't know, it's not here today. So the same he also did. They went to that area to study this culture in all its ramifications. And apart from the social, some of them focus on the artistic and base their compositional theory, their theorization of even generating music theories for scholarly ideas from this culture. So what you are saying, you are on point, sir. People have been doing it. It just depends on the context. I don't know if this is applicable in Nigeria, though, but from even in Ghana, South Africa, Europe, and US, this thing is very, very practical. People do it. Yeah, and it's actually one of the component of ethnomusicological study, artistic work. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I get your point. We might not, maybe we don't have that yet in. So that's why we are having what we are having today. This kind of conversation is to open ideas, to expand practice, and to also encourage other areas of expertise in the mainstream. I don't know if that answers your question, sir.
Yeah, Dr. Chinedu is asking if that answers your question. Is it still there?
No, I'm not sure. I think Dr. Chinedu left shortly after his meeting, his speech.
Okay. Mr. Dushoro, sorry, we had a little challenges in the studio here, and that's caused a lot of.
Sorry, I didn't leave. I didn't leave. Hello.
Okay, it's there.
I didn't leave. It's just a network. Thank you, Dr. Ayorinde, yes, for your explanation. I'm really particular in our country, Nigeria. We have a lot of wonderful researchers, wonderful ethnomusicologists, wonderful how would I call it, scholars, but like I said earlier, we've not harnessed our efforts. So like to begin to put our footprint in Africa, showing what is ours. You can see even in the popular music, popular culture, the popular music, Nigerians, artists are known because of, but our cultural pieces, music, traditional music, which we have a lot of us here as ethnomusicology, we've not been able to, as it were, bring this into fore, except for these few people who you mentioned, who are believe they are abroad, maybe they have all the facility to work with in order to, but here, I don't know, a lot of constraint in making us not to have our research, being there for people to copy, for people to use, and then even to reference them, to say, yes, these people for music from these people, see how you can, play their music, see how you can perform the indigenous repertoire. And so all these things are concerned, but maybe with time, over time, we'll get over this challenge. Thank you very much, Dr. Ayorinde, for.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think just one more point about the performance, which you mentioned, which I also explained, but didn't. So the point is, even in Ghana, people get degree, PhD on local drumming and local dancing. People get PhD in South Africa on just local drumming, performance of local culture, performance of local culture, indigenous dances, even in the indigenous form. On a timely basis, university stage indigenous concert without piano For instance, at UCT, every May and October, the African Music Unit will stage a big production. There's no single Western instrument on stage. Indigenous cow horn, indigenous trumpet, marimba, different, including those multi-layered flutes from Tanzania, from East Africa, akadinda, those interlocking stuff, everything you're going to see on stage, and they are going to play perfectly.
Wow.
And in fact, it's a different world. The harmony you get. Yes. So it is happening in Africa. It is Nigeria. We need to ask ourselves, how do we get there? Perhaps that's why what we are doing now. But this thing is available even in Ghana. You can get a degree as a PhD without just focusing on indigenous drumming, indigenous dancing, indigenous songs alone. And you'll be employed in the national service, in the university. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful conversation, and seriously, if we keep it open all through, we'll continue talking about this so beautiful thing till it gets into the night. Yeah, but before we round this up, Dr. Ayorinde, there's a question for you by, I think, Michael Bakari. He says, to what extent does this applied ethnomusicology simplifies the diversity and complexity of musical traditions / education in Nigeria? And what challenges might it pose from an academic and cultural perspectives? I don't know if you have any response for Bakari.
I want to open that to Prince Muyiwa and Tope to respond to that, I think. Then there's also another question here from Chegun Odusoro. I think maybe check then.
Please, can you help me take that?
Okay. Well, let's answer this. Tope, are you there? That question from Dr. Michael.
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Yeah.
I'm here, sir.
The question from okay, have you seen the question?
From Dr. Bakari.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Our diversity and our diversity should actually be a strength. We have always mentioned this, and not a challenge. Now, the good thing is that if people from Europe can come to Nigeria or to other parts of Africa to look at our traditions, our musical cultures, then there's nothing stopping anybody from anywhere in Nigeria to go from going to any other part of Nigeria to study their music and to understand it and apply it to whatever the situation or challenge in that environment is. But like it's also mentioned that there will be challenges. So what challenge might it pose? Now, our people tend to respect people from outside the country more than those from the country. So, somebody was saying it recently that the tribalism in Nigeria is worse than the racism outside Nigeria. So people get to, commonize, oh, this Igbo man, what do you want to come and do in my village? Why are you asking me so much questions? Oh, you want to steal from us like your father stole from us. That kind of thing. But Europeans have stolen from us more than any other person. And yet when a white person comes to ask questions, people are ready to answer. So this is like Dr. Ayorinde will always say, it poses a challenge of understanding the art of research. Every applied ethnomusicologist must first study the art of research. How do you get people to divulge information to you? How do you get to make relationships? Because research should be a people-centered thing. It is focused on relationship. If you don't have relationship, you're going to have this kind of challenges. The challenge of tribalism, the challenge of, trying to keep secrets away from you, thinking that, oh, you might not be here for good because you have the same color as them. So they believe that, oh, we are all black, so we are all evil. So if you are coming here, you may have some challenges. You may have some, odds or damage you want to come and do to our culture. So
For that reason, we'll try to run away from you or keep some secrets away from you. But all that can be addressed in the study of proper research. When every researcher learns how to make relationships, how to connect with the people whose music they are researching. This will help to simplify our diversity, because that means that even if there are 1 million musical cultures in Nigeria, as long as we have enough applied ethnomusicologists who will go into those places to research them, then everybody can learn about. So if I go to, for instance, I go to Oka to learn or study their music, and somebody goes to my own village in your state to study my music, then both myself and himself, because we are all musicologists, ethnomusicologists, we read our own articles. Most of the articles we publish, we read them by ourselves. The layman does not read articles. They don't read journals. They don't read books. They read magazines. So we are going to understand all of the cultures by simply reading what this person has written, and then we're going to be able to bring them together, that, oh, this culture is similar to this. This culture is similar to that. Then they can work hand in hand. Oh, there's a drum in, let's say, Osun State that is similar to that of Badagry. Okay, let us trace the history. How did they come about it? And how can they work together? So all these things are better simplified if we have enough applied ethnomusicologists who go out there to learn and then put in paper what they have written, and not just put in paper, help the citizens, educate them. Because the education is a very, very important aspect of applied ethnomusicology. Yes, we might be saying, oh, these people are after globalization and all of that, which is true. But there's a way that you are going to make something sound modern, that people will be attracted to it. And it is not changing the sound. It is not changing the culture. It is trying to enlighten people about the modernism in the so-called ancient culture. There is nothing that is ancient that cannot become modern if they are well packaged. So I think that is a very good way. Having enough applied ethnomusicologists going into different villages, towns, and cultures to study them, writing about them, educating them about what exactly their tradition is, would help us to solve all the issues of complexities, diversities, in fact, tribalisms. And then maybe we'll be able to see ourselves as one. Because when I realized that, oh, okay, so maybe while we are tracing the drums, while we are tracing the music, we realize that, okay, so one man actually came from maybe Saudi Arabia or from wherever and brought this drum, first dropped it with his brother here in Osun State, and that's why we have something like that there in Edo State. So he also took it to Edo State. So we are actually the same. So my brother, we are brothers. That helps to solve the complexities in the.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr.
Sorry, sir. Just a quick note on the idea. Thanks so much, Dr. Before you take it to the next person, thank you. So I think the idea of diversity itself in Nigeria is very important. And thanks for that question, Dr. Michael Bakari. But like Dr. explained, there's an underlying issue which he unpacked that I think we should go deeper a bit more. Now, one thing is this: ethnomusicology itself is about diversity. And that the field is based on blurring boundaries. For those who understand, who study the history of ethnomusicology, it came up as a response to musicology, which is about Western empowerment or European modernity, from musicology. So ethnomusicology itself is about modernity. It's about diversity, cross-cultural engagement. But in Nigerian context, the way we do scholarship is different. People only study what they understand. That's not ethnomusicology. Ethnomusicology entails that you go, because there are, like Dr. said, the art of research. We need to consider that in our training. So the art of research is simply that in most grad school, from my own little experience, you teach the logic, the tools of research making. It's like learning piano for 20 years or 50 years. It's the same thing. So there are tools of research making that we need to consider in Nigeria. So people can go to Owerri, a Yoruba person from Ijebu, can develop interest in studying the everyday life of people in Owerri and live there with them, do ethnography there, learn their language, because ethnography is about, you learn language, you learn culture, you learn many things about those people before you can say you have done ethnography. My own first research, I did ethnography with people, is a Xhosa in the Western Cape of South Africa. I'm in Nigeria. They thought I was crazy. I lived there with those people within those rivers. So that is training. You must do it. It is how you get validated. So you people, we now need to learn to understand that, okay, ethnography is not you writing, because you are Yoruba from Ijebu, you're writing about Ijebu. It's a research, of course, but it does not speak to that musicological underlying idea of diversity. It's blurring cultural differences, promoting different culture at the same rate, and making visible the humanity in people. So the point is that if somebody from Owerri can come to Lagos to study at your festival, write about it, then somebody from Lagos or Ijebu should go to North Abuja to go to among the Kanuri people to study and document their culture, learn their language. That is ethnomusicology. Before we can now talk about applied ethnomusicology. So I think these are, thanks so much for that. The tools of research, we need to get back to it in the Nigerian context. The tool of research making is not just taking a course on research method and just for one semester and just writing. No. That is not research. Research is a practical thing. People learn it. People develop it. They are mentored to become a researcher, not just taking a course or library or whatever. No, it is a practice. It changes destiny. It changes even people's identity. Because you become the Igbo, actually. If you're a Yoruba person, you study people of Nnewi. When you work with them, you actually embody their humanity. So by the time you are speaking about that culture, they are seeing you, this is actually in it, because you speak language. You will eat their food. You will become part of them. And that is how ethnomusicology promote diversity.
Of course.
So let me leave it there. Let's take other questions.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Now, there's a new twist to this conversation, which Mr. Odushora somehow provided here. I want to read out his question, probably because he was having difficulties with his network or so. He had to put down his question down there. He said, the conversation is an invitation for us all to participate in promotion and protection of cultural music and associated practices. Interestingly, Diaspora Africa do so well in cultural production because religion has low grip on the mind of the people. But for us here in Africa, particularly Nigeria, he is asking this question: that how do we navigate the difficulty of freeing our minds from religious influences, which for him can hinder.
Can I answer the question, sir?
Okay, please go ahead. How do we navigate our minds so that we can have this whole thing seamless? Thank you.
Yes, just a brief answer before Dr. Ayorinde comes up. The answer to this is also education. It was the white people that came to Africa and made us realize that the idols that our fathers worshipped are evil. And that is a means of education. Now, note that we did not just accept that information from them. They already gave us some practical examples or actions of good deeds that make us believe that they are actually good. So for us to say these people are good, we have seen their actions. They brought water, they brought electricity, they brought education, they brought food, they brought a lot of things to us. And then we see that, oh, life can be better. So these people are actually good. In fact, some of our fathers would want to worship them. And after that, they now tell us that all these things you are doing is evil. We will believe them because they have shown us that they are good. So a good person has the right to call out evil. But if we see them as evil, when they tell us that something is evil, we will not believe them. So we have to first educate the minds of the people from whatever wrong belief system they already have, that this, our culture, is not evil. There are evil people, quite all right. And the evil people are everywhere. It doesn't matter if they have this, if they are taking this culture or they are taking Christianity or Islam as their own religion. There are evil people everywhere. So the fact that this person is carrying this masquerade and singing this your song does not make him evil. Now, that is a whole system of education on its own that will definitely be challenged. But for an applied ethnomusicologist, one of the things that an ethnomusicology consider, like Dr. Ayorinde said, this topic is just, what we did today is just a scratching of the surface. There are so many other dimensions and layers to it that we are not able to talk about today because of time. And one of them is the fact that there has to be a pre-planning for every applied ethnomusicologist. When you get somewhere and you want to do whatever project you want to lay your hand, you have to pre-plan, just like we do in normal ethnomusicology projects. We do, pre-field and then we do post-field. So all of those things are needed. So you can get a plan on how to educate the minds of these people. We all know that, oh, these people here, all of them are Christians. So at the mention of the word Ifa, they run away. Now, how do you do that? You do not just come with Ifa. You have to come with a knowledge of God that is supreme and how it is actually believed to be passed through Ifa. It is not by coming and say, no, because you believe in Jesus, you are going to destroy our culture, and that will not be good for you, and all of that. That way, that is just like a preacher who just come up and say, all of you here are going to hellfire. That's the same thing. And you're not going to win any soul with that kind of approach. So education is one thing that will help to change the mentality of our people. And with that, we are able to achieve our purpose of liberating the people and getting our cultures established and, keep going on. We can only keep our cultures, our traditions alive when people do not see it as evil. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tokwe, for that wonderful
please. I don't know.
response. Yeah, I'm about asking him to speak. I just want to appreciate Tokwe for the wonderful contribution she has, insight she has given to the question asked by Mr. Segun Odushoro. Prof, I'm sorry for keeping you till this time. You know you're our daddy, so we want
you are good. No, you are good,
Thank you very much, sir. Please, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Yes, let me quickly say that I was not raising my hand before now because I was on the wheels, so I couldn't be going to the chat to raise my hand. That's why I was always including. So forgive me if I've included so much. So when I now in my office, that's why I'm able to raise my hand. I was just going to the office when I was just cutting in. So you've done well. Well, thank you for everybody and our young speaker, Tokwe. You've spoken well, and I've enjoyed Uncle Sam, as we call him, Dr. Sam Amushan's contributions so far. What I want to say when brother Dr. Ayorinde was speaking and mentioning about Nicole, David Locke, all those guys. Yes, these are musicologists who are now probably ethnomusicologists. I just wanted to add that time. Even if those names are strange to some people who have not read their works, we have our own Omojola here. It was supposed to. Omojola is now a practicing ethnomusicologist. I'm saying this to buttress what Ayorinde said about now that we have a thin line between musicology and ethnomusicology. Nobody's talking about absolute music now. People are now trying to make references to what that particular music does, how it emanated, or how it emanates. All those are what they are saying. That is on the one hand. On the other hand, of getting to the field to get and to collect adequate data, take them to the laboratory, come out with comprehensive results. Tope has talked about the art of research. It is always good, and it may be necessary most times to collaborate or to have qualified research assistants. That helps when you are going into a new area. I worked on palace music, and I visited 5 palaces. I needed to go and see people who will be able to talk directly with the Obas, the kings, before I started. There are places I went, I have to go with research assistants, and are those who understand and practice that culture very well. But that will give you an inroad. If you are going to Langua to go and study SA music, and you get there just from Lagos, I'm from University of Lagos, I'm from University of South Africa, I'm from MTU, I'm doing this work, or whatever approach, well, I have this bottle of wine. They will collect your wine and drink, but you will not get what you really want. So it's always good to also look for somebody who understands you, who understands your passion for the art, and also understands your hosts. So that's what I want to say there. My takeaway for MTU that I want to give MTU for thanking them is that what are you doing to also have local music entrenched in your curriculum? That is what I want to tell you, because all the things we are saying, let our charity now start from home. Dr. Ayorinde, who is the convener of these programs, has told us what happens in other climes, especially South Africa, where they have indigenous music festival. What are you doing at MTU? Do you want to just be signboard that points people to this place and the signboard cannot enter by itself? So my takeaway, let us also consider that at University of Port Harcourt, now you can major on djembe drums or any other drum, as long as it can be notated. Meki has a lot of books. Thank God Dr. Ayorinde is there in South Africa. He's more used to that. And his books are being used to teach djembe drums. They are using his book to play as a drum. That's David Nkosi, who is playing Igbo drum in South Africa. So what are we doing? All of us who are here, either you're in the classroom or you're in the field practicing, let us get all these things involved. I'm sorry I'm saying this. I was in Malaysia a few years ago. Meki was there. I think Oyeji was there too. I can't remember. Oyeji. And the National Orchestra of Malaysia had 400 members in that National Orchestra. Fusion of ensembles. For 2 hours, they were playing and traditional instruments were embedded in the orchestra. Integral part of it. So I'm giving us as a takeaway that MTU, you are doing well, but you will do much, much better if at that level, you also introduce local traditional music on a very strong point, not just passing notes.
Thank you, Prof, for that. We really enjoyed your contribution. And I'm sure the HOD of music department, Mountaintop University is on this platform. HOD, sir, I would like you to respond to Professor Ade's proposal on MTU incorporating African music, African drumming, and everything African music, drumming and dancing into the curriculum. So, sir, what do you have to say about that, sir? Dr. Guyami, are you in the house? I guess he's still processing his response. He's still processing the response. Now, I actually want to thank everybody that have participated in this program. you will agree with me that it's been an interesting day, interesting conversation. And to those of us who are participating in this program from the distance, you have also contributed greatly. Some of us who could not, raise their hands to say something, at least they've been able to put down their contributions.
Sorry, sir, my network just went off. I don't know what happened. Something cut me off. Maybe because I was talking to MTV, that's why Mike just put me off. What happened? Because I was talking to MTV, that put me off. I don't know what that was.
Not at all.
No, I know. So, but that's okay. I think I've passed my message. Thank you, sir.
All right, sir. I was actually asking my HOD to respond to the post you gave MTU, but I think he's still processing his response. Yeah, we've had a field day. It's been an interesting topic, interesting conversation. Presenters, we want to say a very big thank you to you all for a job well done. It's not easy. My own question is this, Mr. Dr. Ayorinde and HOD of Organ House. At the beginning, you told us that it's not applied ethnomusicology is not a program that is functioning in Organ House. I want to know at which level, sir? Is it at the undergraduate or at the postgraduate level?
Okay, just a quick one about that. So I think the first thing we should talk about is ethnomusicology as a core field to start with. So that is a foundation which started with the graduate program, as you know. So at master's and PhD level, I think here for both ethnomusicological focus and training, and also applied ethnomusicological practice, method, and training, both at master's and PhD levels for now, I think. But the HOD can, of course, respond to us on it. This is just the beginning of, again, it's a new addition, and yeah, let's see where it will. But some of the results is what you have seen today. Tope is one of us, some of Tope, our presenter of today, my friends and colleagues like Tope, Prince, Ademuyiwa. These are all people who are currently going through this framework also. So what you have seen today is just part of what we are doing process. And again, this is just like Tope explained, and again, I explained in the beginning, it's an interesting detail that we can't explore everything at once. It's just, what we did today is just like a first line of, let's say, something very big. So it's just to introduce that concept. And we're still going to have consequent, engagement on the topic and related topics also. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. We are grateful to every one of us. I think we have exhausted our time. Thank you all for coming. I also want to let you know that next week is another day. Next week, Thursday to be precise, it's another day. We're having another interesting program or topic in the house, and the organizers of the program have also designed. I've spoken with another beautiful Nigerian scholar who will come up here to further the discourse on African music series with us. Thank you all, and God bless. Hope to see you on Thursday. Thank you. See you on Thursday next week.
Thank you.